Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon, not here with Geeky Sparkles. She's out and about today, but we're going to talk about Kickstarter. And no, we're not trying to shill stuff. We're going to talk about how Kickstarter is currently on strike. Now, if you will remember, a couple of years ago, they voted to unionize at Kickstarter, and there was a little bit of controversy about that because the reason they were unionizing, in part, was for better working conditions, but it also included a little bit of a rider there that some of the employees wanted the right to dictate what kind of projects Kickstarter would allow. And that's where it starts to get really sticky. But in this case, it looks like they just want 4-day work weeks and $85,000 a year. You can draw your own conclusions there. So, hey, if they've been working 4 days a week for $85,000, you know, if you can get that deal, take it, right? Some of us aren't so lucky, but we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about whether or not this is going to affect projects, because I think that Kickstarter and other crowdfunding platforms are going to be more important going forward, especially with comic books, especially with tabletop games and everything that is in that nerd space because of Diamond imploding. I think Kickstarter is going to become the kind of de facto pre-ordering system. And, you know, so, I mean, it's kind of a big deal if they're all going on strike, right? Because it's like, who's gonna run the shop? They could just be like Indiegogo and nobody's paying attention to what the hell's going on over there. By the way, Indiegogo got sold. Did you guys hear about that? I'm sure you probably heard about it by now. They got sold to GameFound, which was a tabletop game crowdfunding platform, and they got sold. And I guess there were some new rules or something. They're reorganizing something. I don't know. We're going to be migrating over to Kickstarter probably almost exclusively once we get everything tied off. We tried BackerKit. It's okay. It's all right. We might do projects over there, here and there, but I found it to be very hard to use. Kickstarter definitely is the easiest and most well-known of the crowdfunding platforms. There was a lot of concern about censorship. I have not run into that. I don't know. I do know that some people are banned or blacklisted from Kickstarter. I don't know why. I can't speak to that. I don't know why. I know of a couple people that they just will not allow to use the platform for any reason, apparently. But we have not had problems with them. So, then again, I don't know what kind of content, we're talking about. I know if you put like super political content, if it's super political right-wing content, you're probably not gonna be able to sneak it by on Kickstarter. I'm just saying they'll find a reason to probably not run it. Everything we do is very middle of the road. Nothing we do is political. So I don't foresee problems, but who the hell knows, right? Always have a backup for a backup for a backup for a backup. And that's the same with crowdfunding. It's the same with YouTube. It's the same with, if you've got an online store, these platforms could decide to change your terms of service and the stuff you're making. It doesn't even have to be political. It could be the stuff you're drawing or, whatever it is, they can pull the rug out from underneath you. So always make sure you have a backup. So let's talk more about them going on strike anyway, and whether or not this is going to impact projects. I think it might, if it drags on. So before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, go out to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com. Help support the channel, $5 a month. You get paywalled content. We will send you notifications when we post new videos. We haven't for the last couple of days because the guy who does that's been off. But we're gonna get back to it. So thank you very much for the support. Those of you who do support us. Let's talk about this. So a couple of years ago, they voted to unionize, and I think the person that was in charge of that, if I remember, was Zhang. Was that her name? She was from DC Comics, and they were looking for better working conditions, which is fine. Better pay, better working conditions. I completely understand that. When it comes to unionization, where I have a problem is when the unions try to dictate the content that the studio or publisher produces. In this case, they wanted the right, if I remember correctly, let's go through this, I think. Oh, there it is. Yeah. They wanted the right to be able to vote to deny certain projects. And this is coming from ICV2 when they first started the union. They said the organizing efforts were launched in March of 2019 and centered around pay equity, diversity, and hiring, a voice in company decisions, and the effort to hold Kickstarter to its altruistic goals as a public benefit corporation. Kickstarter at this point, look, to me, it feels like a pre-order system. I mean, everybody's using Kickstarter now. All the major comic book publishers are using Kickstarter now. And it's so funny to me I just got to go off on a side tangent here, because I remember when Kickstarter first started. And if you use Kickstarter, comic book publishers, mainstream comic book publishers, would say it's because you weren't good enough to get published yourself. They would say that you were e-begging. It was begging. It wasn't a pre-order system. I guess having your book listed in Diamond is not begging, RIP Diamond. But yeah, and they were just slamming on Kickstarter because they were like, this is just like the stupidest thing ever. You're going to give people money for books that aren't produced yet. I'm like, see also Diamond, you know. So, but a year or two later, and I remember some of the harshest criticism came from the Comics Journal, which is run by Fantagraphics. I did work for Fantagraphics. I have no problem with Fantagraphics. They do really good work, especially the collections, Peanuts collections, and the Disney collections, all that stuff. Very, very good stuff, right? But that being said, there were people that were like, it's e-begging, we'd never use it. And then like a year or two later, they had to use Kickstarter just to stay in business. And now it's just become kind of whether it's Kickstarter, Indiegogo, BackerKit, whatever it is you're using, it has become part of the independent ecosystem. Not even the independent ecosystem. If you're a mainstream publisher, they're all using it, right? And they're using business models very similar to it, maybe on their own website. You look at Hasbro. HasLab is basically Hasbro's own Kickstarter. Mattel does it too. All these toy companies, because why take the risk of producing something very expensive, like in the case of Hasbro doing these Transformers, these ridiculously expensive Transformers? Why take that risk? Why produce a bunch of Riva lightsabers that nobody wants, and then they wind up going to Ollie's? This way you know exactly how many people are interested, and you're getting the money to actually fund the production of it, which is pretty cool. I mean, I think overall it's a good system, but it is again prone to, I believe, gatekeeping, because you have people that are, in charge of it, and they want to make sure that, people people they don't like don't get to use the platform to get their stuff to market. Right. And I don't know if it's as bad as it used to be. I'm going to be honest. I don't know. I do know some people I've talked to that said they're not allowed to use it. They think it's political. But I also know a lot of people that honestly, they put content on there. I'm like, I'm very surprised they're letting you put this on there, and there haven't been issues. So I don't know if it's just, somebody there has to have a personal grudge. I don't know. But that was what caught my attention when they unionized, was the right to veto projects. I thought that was a huge red flag for me. And that's what happened at Image Comics too. You had the office staff. They wanted to unionize so they could basically say, hey, we don't want to publish this stuff. And I don't think that's cool. Your job as an employee of a company is to do what your boss tells you to do. And if you don't like it, then you have to go work someplace else, I guess, because your job is to make your boss's job, your boss's life easier. That's why they're paying you. And if you're making it harder, by putting all these increased demands or saying, hey, we know this project can make millions of dollars, but I don't like this guy very much because he tweeted something, 5 or 6 years ago that I don't like. So let's not platform them or whatever. And we're all going to vote on it. And the owner's going to be like, yeah, I don't give a shit. I want the money. Unless it's something really egregious, like I want the money, right? Just, now you're going to cause this PR black eyes because you're shadow banning people or banning people outright. And it's going to be a huge issue. Anyway, that's my spiel. So they're on strike as of, let's see, the 2nd, I think, of October. Yeah. So this is coming from ICV2. Union Kickstarter employees started a strike on Thursday morning after negotiations on a new contract broke down, the union said in a statement. The previous 3-year agreement expired in July. Negotiations on a new contract began in April. So they've been talking about it since April. Kickstarter workers are represented by Office and Professional Employees International Union Local 153, which won an election in early 2022. That was, We talked about that. The unit consists of 59 community support specialists, trust and safety analysts, marketing professionals, software engineers, and other tech workers. The key issues, according to the union, are the extension of the company's 32-hour, 4-day work week, which has been in place for 3 years, and a minimum living wage for New York City, which company says is $85,000 a year. That's probably right. I mean, I'm going to be honest. It sounds like a lot of money if you're living in rural America, but $85,000 a year doesn't get you very much in New York. I'm just saying. The company wants the right to return to a 5-day work week in the future and has not accepted the minimum wage proposal. Interesting. Now, I remember that there was a big issue with Kickstarter and NFTs. I know that there were people that were like, I'm not going to use Kickstarter because they're talking about blockchain. What they were talking about, if I remember correctly, was basically licensing the Kickstarter engine out so you could crowdfund on your own website using Kickstarter's tools. And then there would have to be some kind of a blockchain something or other in place for that. If I remember correctly, people freaked out. They were going to boycott Kickstarter, whatever. That didn't get very far because now Kickstarter actually had a really good year last year. Again, with the collapse of Diamond, I'm seeing more and more mainstream publishers using Kickstarter, using BackerKit. I've seen Dynamite Entertainment on like both, right? I mean, look at Dynamite. I mean, they're owed what, like $500,000 or millions of dollars by Diamond. So they're going to do what they have to do, right, to stay in business. And honestly, direct to consumer at this point is probably the way to go because we don't have very many comic shops. We have nerd shops, we have geek shops. We have conventions that are basically geeky flea markets, but they're not comic book conventions anymore. All this stuff is kind of morphed into something else. And most quote unquote comic book shops, I'm going to be honest, they're staying in business selling Pokemon cards, selling magic cards. That's what's keeping them in business, right? It was Funko Pops for a while, whatever the hot new thing is. But I can tell you floppy comics are not the hot new thing. They're selling manga. They're selling pretty much everything but. And manga you can actually get from other distributors. We know this because we had a shop and we didn't order anything from Diamond. We ordered it from other sources. We didn't carry floppies, so I didn't see the point. These are the key issues, according to the union, or extension of the work hours. The union voted to strike on September 26th. Kickstarter is continuing to operate without the striking workers for now. Interesting. That's a lot of people. So Kickstarter is still greenlighting projects, and I'll go out to Blue Sky because you can see a lot of people are launching. And I go to why am I going to Blue Sky? You're like, you hate Blue Sky. I'm like, oh, I think Blue Sky is toxic, but that's where all the comic book people and the game people went. So if you want to know I'm going to be honest. If you want to know what's going on, even though there are crazy ass people in Blue Sky, you got to go out there because that's where all the comic book and the game people are. And they're talking about launching their campaigns. The union's not urging a boycott, instead asking for letters of support to management and contributions to a support fund. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so that I'll give them props for that. I will give them props for that because some of these unions are like, if we don't get what we want, we're going to burn the company down. and it's like, okay, I will give them props for that. Funds raised for comic projects on Kickstarter were up in 2024, and for game projects, flat. Well, okay, so game projects are flat because I think the whole implosion of tabletop, or at least these really expensive tabletop games, the Come On Games and all this stuff. And Come On Games had like 17 or 18 unfulfilled projects. I mean, man, people get salty about individuals being late with like a couple of projects, but they had like 17 or 18 like multi-million-dollar projects through Kickstarter that were not fulfilled. And then they're like, yeah, we might go bankrupt. I was like, what the hell? And they're making like $25-30 million a year. I'm like, how do you blow all that money? I don't understand. But yeah, there are a lot of tabletop game manufacturers have kind of slowed their roll a little bit because of the tariff situation. And I think the tariff situation just put a huge spotlight on how dependent tabletop game manufacturers are on overseas production. And that's one thing we're looking at right now with Adventure Engine. Remember Adventure Engine? Yeah, we're still working on it. It's still being worked on. That we are looking to do everything here in the US. Not just because of tariffs, just because it would be so much easier. Like, hey, I can go drive to pick up the books. That would be very, very nice. It's just, load up a van and bring it back to the shipping station. That would be very, very nice. So that's what we're probably going to do. But yeah, a lot of these guys are making these games with it's got 400 miniatures and a whole bunch of plastic pieces, and all that stuff pretty much has to be manufactured overseas, or you're going to be charging people, $500 a game, because it's so expensive to make it here in the US. We just don't have the capability. But people are launching projects. If you go out to Blue Sky and you put in Kickstarter, the Etherington brothers, they do drawing books. They're still putting theirs up. Matt Mercer, I think, posted that they're doing, let's see here, Andrew, I don't know who this is. Andrew Pimday, I don't know. Mature animal furry stuff, so that'll do really well, I'm sure, on Kickstarter. Durf Expanded's on Kickstarter. I know I saw one from Matt Mercer down here. But yeah, everybody's putting this stuff on Kickstarter. So they're still taking projects. Nobody's boycotting. Daggerheart, here we go. Daggerheart Class Pack, this just launched. And, it's at almost $2,000 already. So that's pretty cool, I guess. If you like Daggerheart, I don't know. I'm not really into it. But Tom Tomorrow's launching a book. Yeah, okay, here we go. Kickstarter workers on strike. Here's how to support them. All right. Show your solidarity by supporting your favorite creators on the platform like normal. So yeah, they're not calling for a boycott. Send a letter to Kickstarter leadership urging them to meet our demands. 4-day work week. What do you guys think about that? Because most of us don't have the luxury of working 4 days a week. Actually, if you work 4 days a week here in Pennsylvania, it's because they don't want to give you benefits. So they'll work you like 32, 35 hours, whatever it is, like right under the radar. I have to look. I mean, I've been on salary since I was like 22, but, yeah, they're working you under the, whatever constitutes full time. So they don't have to give you benefits. So I don't know. Donate to our fund, attend a rally or picket in New York and Seattle. Well, I'm not going to do that, but, yeah, it just sounds like everything's just kind of, business as usual. I was kind of wondering if it was going to affect things because, yeah, I'm going to be honest. They actually probably have more leverage now than they've had in a long time because, again, Indiegogo got sold. I don't know how that's going to go. BackerKit's okay. I mean, there are other platforms out there, but Kickstarter really is the brand in the comic book and tabletop industry. Basically needs Kickstarter at this point. They do. So I think they have more leverage, but at least this time it's not like, hey, we want more say in the projects. We don't want, what I'm saying? Like that's what bothers me about unions. People are like, you're just anti-union across the board. And I'm like, no, not really. If they do what they were, intended to do, which is, better working conditions, better pay. But I've seen so much abuse of unions over the last, decade where, again, especially in creative fields where they want to dictate what gets produced by the studio. You work for the widget factory, it's a widget factory. You don't go into the widget factory, unionize, and then say, hey, we're not making widgets anymore. I'm like, then you go to another factory and you work there because we make widgets, right? That's all I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up, guys. There you go. What do you think? Leave a comment. Please subscribe. We'll talk later. For more pop culture news, views, and rants, go to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com.